Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. It's confession time today. I'm hopeless at maths. I don't see patterns in numbers, and it's my Achilles heel. So can we all agree to keep that between ourselves? Good. On with today's show, because I get to speak with young startups, big businesses, big brands and tech leaders on this show every day. But today's story really struck a chord with me. And it's a company called Parsegon that's looking to revolutionize the digital education landscape. It's a platform that transcribes plain English text to different symbols and visualizations. Now, this is specifically helpful with math, chemistry and economics, which you probably guess is not my strong point. But they're solving a real problem in education in a digital world where we're much more visual than before. But guess what? Parsegon is also backed by Columbia University, and the team is comprised entirely of college students. I think it's an incredibly inspiring story about students concentrating on a solution rather than complaining about a problem. And the result is fantastic. And these are the stories I think really need to be heard. So buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way back to the US so we can speak with Mathew from Parsegon. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Mathew. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Neil. My name is Mathew. I am 21 years old, currently residing in New York City, currently in also my senior year at Columbia. I have been working on an EdTech company for the last 2 years, and I'm very passionate about trying to change and revolutionize the educational landscape, especially in the math and sciences. My primary roles at Parsegon, which is the company we'll be speaking about today, involve programming to administration, and it's primarily between myself and my co-founder who goes to MIT.
I recently read how you're on a mission to revolutionise the digital education landscape, and your team is the team that is comprised entirely of college students, which I think is fantastic on its own. But for anyone listening, can you offer an overview of what Parsegon is, and also the second iteration, which I think is Paperspade, and what makes them both stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, absolutely. So Parsegon started out as a way to write out math easier. Currently, the best way to type out your math notes on a computer would be to type it in something called LaTeX. That's spelled LATEX. And LaTeX is great. It's fantastic for people that are good at it, but there's quite a big learning curve to get accustomed to LaTeX. So as a consequence, a lot of people are discouraged to type any math whatsoever, but there's a lot of learning that has to do beforehand. So what we did is we built a system where you could type your notes in English, like English descriptions of math, and it will automatically translate that into the mathematical equivalent. And we transformed that into a company that specifically builds this technology for teachers, so it could help them orchestrate digital homework online for the students. And on top of that, we built extra tools. And as you mentioned, there is a product called Paperspade, which is basically a free product for students that has the same technology leverage for free.
So where did all this start? I mean, what was the inspiration behind Parsegon? Was it born out of all your frustrations as students there, and you decided to join together and fix the old way of doing things? Is that how it happened, or was there a different story?
That is actually more or less true. I was taking a class at Columbia called Discrete Math, and part of the requirements of the class is to type out your work when you need to turn it in to the teacher. And the only good way to type it out is to use LaTeX. Yeah. You technically could use Microsoft Word's like built-in editor, but it's also just as slow. It's like a lot of clicking and building. So during the course of the class, I started working on this project on the side of trying to make it a little bit easier to type in your notes. It was kind of like my own programming language. But as I built in more and more shortcuts to typing in math, I discovered like it would be even easier to build it out to English. And I can't take all the credit. So I partnered with one of my friends from debate, and we basically worked on the algorithm throughout next coming year, perfecting all the edges of it. And eventually, once we felt that it was ready for other people to use without having like a big learning curve, we released it out to the public.
So these platforms that you've created, they transcribe plain English text to different symbols and visualizations, like you've pointed out there. But can you expand on what areas or subjects this is particularly useful for? I mean, you've said like math is an obvious example, but are there other areas as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So any subject whose constraint is math is affected, and that's quite a bit. So you have obviously all of your math classes. Also classes in physics, classes in chemistry tend to become a lot easier to take notes with if you can type out the math in those classes on the web. We've also built in tools for students in economics. So if you need to draw an economics graph that gets applied demand graph, we have tools to let you build that and juxtapose it directly with the math you might do with that class. We kind of started the company on this specific software for the mathematical setting. We decided over time it made sense to expand it to different subjects that have related fields of overlap so that students can use our tools in more and more of their subjects.
Now, you've created this fantastic solution, but how difficult have you found it is to get that word out there about this cool product and ultimately get users' attention and make them aware that, and not only does this tool exist, but also what a great game changer it could be for them too?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest challenges for us is convincing people it works. I think there's a lot of solutions out there that are more or less versions of LaTeX to type out math. But none of them really make it in terms of becoming an easy and fast solution to use. So a lot of that is us communicating to people through free demonstrations and letting them play around with the editor in order to make sure they understand and also feel accustomed and are happy with the tool it has. And then one of the other general matters is that we do need to specifically reach out to students at the right time. If you're halfway through college and you're mostly done with your math subjects, right, it doesn't make sense to get into a new software, even if it's very easy to learn, when you're almost at the end, right? So the people that tend to be the best adopters of Parsegon tend to be students coming into their first year where they could use it for a very long period of time and grow accustomed to all of its specific features.
So if there's anybody listening that wants to find out more, this is a great stage for you guys because I think we're listening to in 155 countries. So can you tell me where it's currently available and how much it's going to cost them and an overview of what is waiting for them so they'll be able to get up and running as quickly as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So from the perspective of the student, to use Paperspade, it's entirely free. You can sign up for free and you are able to type up your notes. There is a premium account, which gives you some extra space, but all the main features are still available on the free accounts. So signing up is simple through the website. You just pass your email and you create your own password, and from there, the rest of the process should be self-explanatory. The main Parsegon website, which is the app for teachers and students, which is basically built for the classroom, schools basically will contact us and apply through the site, and then we work with administrators there to get them onboarded onto the system. That's a lot more hands-on process because we are dealing with both the teachers and the students end. We want to make sure the communication with both of those channels is very good. So we make sure we handle each of those cases by hand instead of them going through an automatic process.
Excellent. I've got to ask, how great have Columbia University been in supporting you guys in doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. Columbia's been fantastic. We originally applied to an incubator at Columbia called AlmaWorks. It is run by an organization called CORE, that is the Columbia Organization of Rising Entrepreneurs. And they basically connected us to a lot of mentors that were past alumni and also just mentors in the city to help give us some advice as we were starting it out. It was especially helpful from the legal standpoint. We partnered with a law firm there to get us incorporated and also work on some specific IP for the platform. And then after that program, Columbia funded us through two different programs. One was a competition that we won, and the other was a grant provided independently through the department. So both of those were huge help in funding the enterprise over the summer, where we spent a lot of time. Basically, we rented a small apartment in New York and had 4 developers there and built out the project as fast as possible to make sure by the coming school year we had it ready for the individuals. But all the process really wouldn't have been possible without the financial support of Columbia. So extremely thankful for that.
So do you have any advice for if we have any college students listening now that get frustrated with that old way of doing things and they're listening to this thinking, I've got my own idea how to revolutionise the digital education landscape or indeed any area in education and make a difference too? What kind of advice would you offer those?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing would be to always talk to your potential customers. If you want to work with schools, it's important to call teachers, even if it's a cold call, and try to just get 5 or 10 minutes at a time to talk to them about your solution and make sure it's something they might be interested in. We did that a lot about a year ago. We called a lot of teachers across the country and wanted to make sure that we were meeting their needs and addressing any possible concerns they would have. And not everyone, for instance, wants to change, right? A lot of people like the traditional ways they've been teaching over the past, years or decades. But there will always be teachers looking out for new solutions. So it's important to try to find the audience and make sure that you're addressing those necessary concerns, especially in a space like education, because there tends to be things that you don't think about right away, features necessary for any school to have, both on a legal standpoint, but also on a practical standpoint.
Excellent. Well, a big thank you for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. I think it's an inspirational story. But before I let you go, can I ask you to leave your website and contact details for your team? If anybody listening wants just to find out more information or carry on that conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the main website of the company is Parsegon.com. That is Parsegon.com. My email address is Mathew@Parsegon.com. That's Mathew with one T, so Mathew. Feel free to also reach out to my co-founder, Rikhav, which is RIKHAV@Parsegon.com.
Excellent. Well, I'll add those all to the show notes just so people can get hold of you nice and easily. But more than anything, I just want to say a big thank you for coming on and taking the time to share your story today. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate it a lot, Neil. Thank you.
It was great to hear Mathew sharing his story there. You know what? We all know people that moan and complain about things, but never do anything about it and probably blame the whole world for their problems. And I also think that students get a very bad rap these days. How many articles have we seen about lazy millennials? In fact, I would argue it's those articles that are incredibly lazy, written by lazy journalists. But all the students at Parsegon here are concentrating on a solution rather than complaining about a problem. And they're making a difference as a result. And this is something we should be shouting about from the rooftops. And one of the reasons I love doing this show is to hear and share positive tech stories. There are enough sites hyping up products and telling the world that robots are taking their jobs. But Parsegon's startup story, ran by students and supported by a university, is as good as it gets. So let's hear more stories like that. But as always, let me know your thoughts. What do you think about today's show, the Parsegon story, or any of the episodes I've recorded this week? Or even if you've got a question, you should know where to find me by now. My email address is techblogwriter@outlook.com, or you can get me on Twitter @NeilCHughes, where I recently got the blue tick of approval. Woot woot! But we're at the end of another episode, so I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did, but it's time for me to go. So until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.